The sun has gone down at Hangman's Hill, and the ghost at Misery Corner isn't walking tonight. So, welcome to the Weird Tales Radio Show, your weekly fix of ghost stories, urban myths, magic, and folklore. And now, here's your host, writer, award-winning journalist, best-selling author, and sometime werewolf hunter, Charles Christian.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm Charles Christian, and with me is Janie. This is episode 36, the 4th of October edition of the Weird Tales Radio Show podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, and all the usual podcast platforms. This week we're heading into the realms of urban myth-busting and witchcraft in the pop industry. But first, over to Janie, who has been looking at some more of our seasonal festivals and folklore. And Janie, you're going to be talking to us about some of the folklore associated with winemaking, I believe.
Yes, I am. And you won't be surprised to know there's quite a lot, as wine drinking has been going on for a very long time, and people possibly have got a little bit, how should we say? I don't know where I'm going with this.
Sloshed.
Sloshed, that's the word, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, if you're in Italy and you spill the wine, you must dab it behind your ears, because if you don't, it's possible that you'll bring bad luck. Well, it's a bad omen. Mm-hmm. However, in complete contrast, the Portuguese believe that spilling wine on a table brings good fortune and happiness to the household. Now, we're quite messy, aren't we? So that's probably, a good thing that we're quite messy. Yeah. Right. Germany now. The last grapes harvested in each season in Germany must be brought in by an ox-drawn cart. Otherwise, the entire season will turn sour.
Ooh.
Yeah. Where'd you get an ox-drawn cart? I wonder if because we've got a local vineyard.
Vineyard, that's the word.
It's quite late in the day, to be fair. And I don't know whether they know this.
No.
And I don't know, even if they did know this, whether they'd be able to find an ox.
No. Most of the oxes round here end up on ox roasts, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is an ox anyway? Is it just a big cow?
It's a big male cow, isn't it?
It's a big male cow. Oh, right, okay. Right, Lithuania now. This seems to be ridiculously wasteful. I don't know whether they could not have spotted that this could possibly not work. But anyway, fishermen used to pour wine into the sea as they believed it would calm stormy waters.
That might be an excuse for fishermen to say, "Oh, it's looking a bit rough out there. Can we have a few bottles of wine can?"
See, they're not that daft, are they? Yeah. During Jewish weddings, the groom will step on a wine glass in order to bring happiness to the marriage. Hopefully, not in his socks.
Yes, that would not be a good start.
No. In Russia, pouring your own glass of wine is considered bad luck. No, I have no more on that, I'm afraid.
No.
Some winemakers are particular about the days they begin their harvest, and starting on a Friday, for some, is bad luck. We're thinking long weekend, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're thinking that.
Yeah.
In Argentina, much like a lot of other countries, it's considered unlucky to toast with an empty glass. See, again, you can see quite how that one came up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, superstitions actually, they can be a little strange, but there are some that are also quite grungy. For instance, there are winemakers in America who don't wash their harvest clothes from the start of the harvest through to the last press run, which, all those sort of acidic-y,
Yes.
mouldy grape smells. Imagine they were a bit high. But then again, perhaps they just had to sniff their shirt tails or something and got a lovely whiff of wine. Anyway, So, yes.
Moving on.
Moving on, there is a saying, which I'm sure we've all heard, drunk as the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, for a tippler to become as drunk as the Pope, you're wondering what on earth that is about, aren't you? Well, it's because of an expression that was inspired by Pope Clement VI. I can't quite remember what era that was, strangely. But anyway, his lifestyle was more like a wealthy, bon vivant secular prince than that of a poor old priest. For instance, he bought the entire city of Avignon so he could fully wallow in his earthly pleasures, among which were the services of a harem of young women and, just to balance things out, a stable of young boys. His lasting infamy came...
I think we're talking about 12th, 13th century then.
Thank you for that. History geek. His lasting infamy apparently came when he celebrated Mass while drunk and thus brought papal inebriation into a standard for intoxication. Then...
Yes.
There's the story that in, 1360, actually, so I can save you having to rifle through for days, Herr Ritter von Hunelstein offered a bottle of wine grown from his vines in Bernkastel Township to his personal friend Archbishop Beaumont. The Archbishop lay gravely ill, you see, in the ancient Roman city of Trier. Beaumont was grateful for this thoughtful gesture and eagerly drank his friend's wine, assuming it to be one of his last earthly pleasures. But the next day he awakened from his deathbed with vitality, gesturing to the fateful bottle and proclaiming, "This splendid doctor," that's the bottle, "cured me." Hunelstein's 8-acre vineyard in the middle of the beautifully austere Mosel River wine region has forever since been known as the Bernkasteller Doktor.
Oh.
Yeah. I bet you many people have wondered that. We've enlightened them.
We have.
Oh, now this bull's blood. I remember back in the day.
Oh, it was either bull's blood, Blue Nun or Matches Rosé, wasn't it?
You're quite sophisticated if you had bull's blood.
Yeah, when you went out to your Burney Inn.
Well, yes. Or to little wine bars and bistros. Don't seem to have many more. Anyway, little Weatherspoons. Yes, it's a terrifying wine, you see, because during the 1550s, the Turkish ruler, Suleiman the Magnificent, prepared his siege of Eger Castle in the Beech Mountains in northern Hungary. Thus, the fortress was defended by 2,000 soldiers and civilians led by Captain Istvan Dobo. That's probably not how you pronounce it, to be fair. Against far more Turks. Miraculously, though, the Hungarians held their stations despite several weeks of repeated attacks on their walls. It was during this onslaught that Dobo authorised rations of red wine to maintain the strength and morale of his defenders. The story goes that the wine streamed down the thirsty soldiers' beards and armour, creating the notion among the enemy that the Hungarians were drinking bull's blood to give them superhuman strength.
Ooh.
Yeah. As a result, the Turks withdrew from the Eger fortress, or Eger fortress. Anyway, it was another 200 years or so before the Eger wine growers commercialised their red wine legend into bottles of the now famous bull's blood of Eger.
Mm-hmm.
Or Eger. Yeah. So there's another one.
Excellent.
It took them a couple of 100 years to come up with that little marketing ploy.
Well, they didn't have PR agencies in
And then
those
another
days.
200 for the logo, probably.
They're still working on the logo.
Yeah. I've got more. Yes.
Go,
okay.
go for it.
Port.
Yep.
Right. Decanters of an unidentified port. I'll start again.
You do that.
Port.
Port.
Okay. Interesting. Decanters of unidentified port wine are always served by being passed to the left. It's a tradition that's perhaps taken from British sailing jargon, because the port side of a ship, as any fool knows, is the left side. Yeah. Another curious explanation for this is that passing the wine with the left hand to the person on the left kept the right hand free for quickly reaching for a sword should that be necessary. The amount of things that are related to reaching for your sword with the right hand is quite humongous.
It is
actually.
Indeed, yeah. But, I mean, if you're sitting down at a table drinking wine, pulling your sword out is not going to be that easy anyway, with whichever hand you use it in, because there's the furniture in the way.
Furniture, and of course you've had quite a lot of wine.
And you've had a lot of wine.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Should the decanter become delayed for some reason, the host will typically ask the detainer, "Do you know the Bishop of Norwich?" This is usually met with a prompt dispatch of the port decanter on its way clockwise again, never directly across the table. If the delay continues, the host may call out again, "The bishop is a good fellow, but he never passes the port." Oh, dear me. You can just imagine it as some crusty old club happening.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you have it. That's
Right.
wine.
Well, I've got a little bit of facts and figures here, because at the moment, 22nd of September through to the 7th of October, is the Oktoberfest in Munich.
Oh, yes.
Lots of eating and drinking. And it's estimated that there will be 7,200,000 visitors.
Good Lord, that's a queue at the bar.
That's a queue at the bar. That in the time they will get through 500,000 roast chickens, 115,000 pork sausages. They will drink approximately 7 million litres of beer and 170 million litres of non-alcoholic beverages. They will also quaff, nice little word there to go. They will also quaff 95,000 litres of wine and 42,000 litres of sparkling wine.
And then there's the queue for the loos.
Then there's a queue for the loos, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going, so I'm not worrying about that.
Thank you very much. Forget sex, drugs and roll. We're looking at rock and roll and witchcraft. Yes, it was reported last week that Kimberly Thompson, a drummer with Beyoncé for the past 7 years, had taken out a restraining order against Beyoncé, claiming she used extreme witchcraft. Not just any witchcraft, but extreme witchcraft to control her life, tap her finances and her phones. Misses. It's not the first time that Beyoncé's been associated with distinctly paranormal activity. She and her husband Jay-Z have been plagued with rumours that they are linked to the Illuminati, who are, of course, a fictional secret society. They've been associated with it since the 1990s. Rolling Stone says believers point to a triangle hand symbol the couple have been seen making, and apparently the video for Beyoncé's 2008 single Ladies allegedly contains hidden messages when played backwards. Yes, the old Stairway to Heaven, their secret messages when a song is played backwards. So, not exactly evidence, and it's noticeable that the judge in the case involving Kimberly Thompson refused to grant her a restraining order. But there's more. Solange Knowles, who is Beyoncé's sister and also a singer, apparently turned up at the 2018 Met Gala in an outfit looking like a sort of voodoo saint, carrying a bottle of Florida water, a type of liquid known for its spiritual properties and apparently used in voodoo, Wiccan and Santeria practices. Yeah. She was in a fancy dress outfit and she was carrying a bottle of Florida water. I'll be talking about Florida water just in a moment. And then there's yet more. Another outfit in the world of rock and roll associated with black magic and the likes is that well-known 1980s pop outfit Hall & Oates. Daryl Hall, he's the tall blonde-headed one, he said that in an interview in 1987 that around 1974 I graduated into the occult and spent a solid 6 or 7 years immersed in the Kabbalah and the Chaldean, Celtic and Druidic traditions and other ancient techniques for focusing the inner flame that will create unimagined things and truly transform your individual universe. Hall went on to say that his great-great-grandfather was a warlock and that he had a lineage similar to that of Aleister Crowley. Hall again speaking, I was fascinated with him because of his personality. It was the late 19th century equivalent of mine, a person brought up in a conventionally religious family who did everything he could to outrage the people around him as well. Misses. It has, however, been pointed out that perhaps it was only black magic or some occult forces that allowed Hall & Oates to enjoy such a successful career with such relatively thin songs. But let's have a look at whatever this thing is called Florida water. And I'm slightly less impressed to learn that you can buy Florida water on Amazon. So, Florida water. Florida water is an American version of eau de cologne. It's citrus base, but more of an emphasis on orange rather than lemon in the original cologne water, and has spicy notes including lavender and clove. The name refers to the fabled Fountain of Youth, which was said to be located in Florida, as well as its flowery nature of its scents. The company called Lanman Kemp Barclay first started selling the stuff in 1808 and are still selling it to the present day. And I say it's available on Amazon. It's also quite big in China. But what about its occult purposes? I'm looking at a site called originalbotanica.com, and it says that Florida water used to be sold in pharmacies where it was said to have generally refreshing properties, but could also cure a headache and soothe a fever. However, it also apparently has magical properties that make it a staple of hoodoo, voodoo, Santeria and Wicca practices. These are all different forms of witchcraft practiced in different areas of the United States. Here's one use of it. Use it in spells. Use it to remove heavy vibrations and to encourage the expression of emotions. I think you dab it behind your ears to get that effect. If you are seeking guidance from your ancestors, place a glass of Florida water on your altar and it will clear the air of any static and then allow a clearer reading. For help attracting love or unblocking obstacles relating to a current relationship, add a few drops of Florida water to a bowl set beside your bedside and light a red attraction candle while focusing your attention on your desired goal. Little quote here on the website saying, "Be aware, Florida water is flammable and should never be placed directly on a candle." And when blessing and cleansing a new home, mix Florida water with basil and rue herbs and anoint your floors, windows and doorways for protection, prosperity and luck. And if you are preparing to take part in some form of magical ritual, have a wash with Florida water soap. Add a few drops to a spiritual bath to rid yourself of negative energy and encourage protection. After your bath, dab some Florida water on your head, neck, heart, feet for protection and for a feeling of balance. Actually, seems quite a harmless stuff, so we do wonder quite what the upset about Solange Knowles carrying a bottle of it to a fancy dress party was really all about. However, there we go. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and witchcraft.
You are listening to the Weird Tales Radio Show with Charles Christian on internet radio and podcast.
We're going urban myth busting again, and just for a change, it's got a pop music angle. And it's a story we've had before, the old Paul McCartney is dead story. Right, the good news is Paul McCartney has a new album out called Egypt Station. Very nice it is too. I've got a copy of it. And sadly we can't play it because of copyright reasons. It's his 18th solo album since leaving the Beatles. That's not including the tracks he made with Wings. It's been his most successful album release in the US since 1982. It went straight to the top of the Billboard Top 200, and it's actually the first time he's ever had an album go straight to number one. Previously, they'd taken a while to get there. So that's the good news. He's got a new album out. It's doing well. It's got some great tracks on it. Unfortunately, that hasn't stopped people saying, yeah, it's all more proof that Paul McCartney is actually dead. Right, the story for the background is sometime in around about 1966, somebody stole or borrowed Paul McCartney's car and were involved in an accident. The people involved in the accident weren't hurt seriously. Nobody was killed. However, this didn't stop a rumour going round that Paul had been killed in the car accident. And the Beatles, not knowing what to do, decided to get somebody as a stand-in to replace him, a lookalike who could take his place. And the first person they took was a person called William Campbell, who'd apparently won a competition for a Paul McCartney lookalike. An alternative suggestion is it was actually a guy called William Shepherd, who'd been a friend of McCartney's back in his Liverpool days and played with a band called the Pepper Pots. Both of them were known as Billy, and by a further twisting of the imagination, Billy Shepherd or Billy Campbell became Billy Shears. And if you recall from the opening of one of the tracks in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, they sing about Billy Shears. Yeah, I know, it's stretching things a bit. And apparently the reason it's called the Lonely Hearts Club Band is because they were lonely because Paul had died. And in fact, all the Beatles albums from Sgt. Pepper onwards until they disbanded were all rather sad and all about Paul's death. Oh, yes, I just found another version that there was actually somebody called William Shears Campbell, so it became Billy Shears Campbell. Anyway, one way or another, somebody called Billy Shears or Billy Campbell or Billy Shepherd has been impersonating Paul McCartney since 1966, so it's coming up for 50 years of doing this. Now, the initial thing you think is, why would they bother? I mean, pop acts have died in the past. That hasn't affected their careers, hasn't affected their chart entries. Jim Reeves, some of you may remember from the 1960s, actually had more number one hits after he'd died than while he was still alive. Jimi Hendrix still sells well. Michael Jackson still sells well. Death doesn't actually stop your career. But Beatles apparently, they thought differently. They wanted to have somebody who would look like Paul McCartney. Now again, you do wonder, Paul McCartney, that whole thing with Linda McCartney and the children, Stella McCartney, all of that was fake. All of that was with an imposter. Why would he then go to the trouble of forming the band Wings? Why would he then go to go on to release 18 solo albums? Why would he go and have the marriage with Heather Mills? All of these things. You think, surely if it was just a hoax to carry over the Beatles, surely you just let it disappear. Have him quietly die in the background. Nobody's got conspiracy theories about poor old George Harrison dying of cancer. It could have easily been disappeared, but no, according to the conspiracy theorists, Paul McCartney is not only dead, but his alias, Billy Shears, is alive and well and still continuing to step in for Paul McCartney. So what's that got to do with the new album? Well, it's largely down to the artwork on the cover of the album, which includes such things as Paul McCartney's name appearing upside down, clearly an indication that he's not with us, he's in a different world. There are 8-pointed stars all over the cover, except for where there are 10-pointed and 11-pointed stars, but apparently the 8-pointed star is very mystical. There is a dog painted on the cover. That's clearly Anubis, the Egyptian god associated with death. There's a character wearing what appears to be a sheepskin coat, shepherd, Billy Shears. There's a goat, a billy goat. It's just so many clues are there. And ironically, they were all painted by Paul McCartney himself, or should we say Billy Shears. And above all, there is a statue of a little gnome with his willy sticking out, and that apparently is Aleister Crowley. Depicted not as he's ever been in real life, but once again proof that there is an occult element here. And once again, if you play certain of the Beatle tracks backward, you will hear them all singing, Paul is dead, Paul is dead. So, Egypt Station. Pyramids, yes, associated with the dead. Mystical stars, Aleister Crowley, a billy goat, Anubis, and Paul McCartney's name's upside down. Yeah, absolutely nothing to do with design at all. All more proof, hidden proof, produced to show that Paul McCartney really is dead. Anyway, Paul, we like your album, and whether you're dead or not, good luck with it. That's it, we're almost out of time, but there's just room to squeeze in one final story. Now, as you know, at this time of the year is when colleges and universities start their new academic year, and here's an interesting little course I hadn't seen before. It's from an organisation in the UK called the Centre of Excellence, which provides online training courses, and this is a scrying diploma course. Yes, polish up your crystal balls. They've got 150 hours of study here for a diploma in scrying. Apparently the course will tell you all about scrying, scientific research into scrying, and the history of scrying from ancient times through to the modern times, scrying in folklore and popular culture, and then it then goes on to offer scrying tools and methods. So scrying using candles and clouds, crystals and fire, mirrors, oil and smoke, water and wax. A course goes on to say requires no previous knowledge and is suitable for absolute beginners who want to experiment with scrying. However, this course may be of particular interest to those who are seeking to develop their psychic abilities or to incorporate a new tool into their practice. Although there is plenty of information about scrying's history and the theories on how it works, this is a practical course and guides you through the process of scrying with tips and exercises designed to enhance your skills and understanding. And once you've done that, you get a diploma. And say it's all totally online. The course costs £127, approximately 6 months duration, and you can find more at www.centreofexcellence.com. And that's not the only course they operate. Let's just look at some of their others in the field of psychic development. They've got an advanced Wicca diploma course. They have an Akashic Records diploma course, an alchemy diploma course, an ancient Egyptian magic diploma course, an ancient magic diploma course, non-Egyptian, astral projection and diploma course, that sounds fun, learning to fly, an astrology diploma course, a connecting your spirit guides diploma course, a dowsing diploma course, a feng shui diploma course, a Kabbalah diploma course, a kitchen witchery diploma course, a hedge witchery diploma course, a mediumship diploma course, a natural magic diploma course, a numerology course, palmistry, parapsychology, psychic development, rune divination, shamanic healing and energy healing, symbology, tarot. There's a course on the Divine Feminine Diploma course. There's a UFO diploma course, a Vedic Astrology diploma course, and a Wicca diploma course. So, plenty of things if you're interested in the paranormal psychic development there, as I say. All to be found on centreofexcellence.com. Enjoy them if you sign up. In the meantime, I look forward to joining you again next week. But until then, may your gods and goddesses protect you from ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties and things that go bump in the night. Good night.
Black Shuck, the demon dog of East Anglia, is baying at the moon. Which means it's time for us to go. You've been listening to the Weird Tales radio show with Charles Christian, your fortnightly fix of ghost stories, urban myths, magic and folklore. Keep in touch with us online at www.urbanfantasist.com or by email at urbanfantasist@icloud.com and on Twitter at Christian Uncut. Good night. Join us again in 2 weeks' time for another edition of the Weird Tales radio show.